Hello everyone, I'm the Sports Wiz 101 and today I'll be giving you my picks at the upcoming season's playoffs. So yeah, I have picked a playoff field all based on my predictions that I've gotten over the past couple of weeks, and now I'm going to pick the actual games. Starting in the wild card round, of course, and starting with the AFC. We have the Ravens and the Bills. This will be a pretty good matchup on paper. But to me, one quarterback tends to do much better in the playoffs than the other, and that's Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I think we see another Josh Allen playoff performance and another Lamar Jackson playoff performance, which, of course, means two totally different things. Lamar Jackson tends to play his worst football when we get to the postseason. Josh Allen, not so much. It feels like with Josh Allen, him not getting to the Super Bowl is more a case of his team letting people down other than his play. His play's been good enough to get him there, but not the actual play of his teammates. So yeah, Bills move on. We go to Jets and Texans. I find this interesting because the Jets last season took on the Texans in the regular season and they walloped them. They blew them out. Quite possibly the worst game of C.J. Stroud's career. Now, of course, there's some differences here. The Texans now have Joe Mixon at running back. The Texans now have Stephon Diggs. And if this comes to pass, the Texans would be at home for this matchup, whereas they had to go over to the Meadowlands to take on the Jets last season. Now, of course, the Jets have also made plenty of moves, mostly upgrading the offensive line, getting a new wide receiver in Mike Williams, and, oh yeah, getting a healthy Aaron Rodgers. I think if all of that's true here, you gotta take the Jets in maybe a bit of an upset. Then we have the Steelers and the Bengals, two divisional rivals. I think the Steelers will ultimately fall here to the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati, they just know what it takes to win in the postseason. Meanwhile, the Steelers have not won a postseason game since 2016. I could be wrong there, but been like 8 years since Mike Tomlin's Steelers have won the playoffs. I'm taking the team that knows how to win. I'm taking the Bengals. We move on to the NFC. I just think the Lions a clearly superior team to the Atlanta Falcons. Though Atlanta is more prepared to beat the Lions this year than they would have been last year, I think. I mean, this is a Lions team that runs the ball pretty well, that stops you from running the ball. So if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to throw on them. And the Falcons are more prepared to do that this year than they were last year. But I still think the Lions, a more talented team, they got better offense, they got better defense, they got better coaches, and I think the Lions win there. Cowboys-Packers, call this the Packers beating up on the Cowboys Part 2. Give me Green Bay. And then you have Bears-Eagles. Bears and Eagles. This will be a very interesting matchup as Caleb Williams tries to win his first playoff game in the NFL in his first attempt. That being said, I think the inexperience of the Bears comes back to bite them here. Give me the Eagles. Now for the divisional round. We have the Bills and the Bengals. And I'm going to use a similar reason to why I picked the Bills to be here, to eliminate them. Because you have one quarterback who tends to play well in the playoffs even if his team tends to let him down. And you got another quarterback that tends to win the playoffs even if he's having an off day. And I'm taking that quarterback that tends to win the playoffs, so I'm taking Joe Burrow. Then we have the Jets and the Chiefs. This is where I think the Jets and their injuries start to catch up to them. Give me Kansas City, setting up another Bengals Chiefs championship game. Then we got a couple of interesting NFC matchups. I think these are the four teams that could very well represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Yeah, the Packers taking on the Lions. Packers taking on the Eagles. I'm a firm believer in Jordan Love. However, I think the Eagles just have too many weapons for the Packers to guard, and so I'm taking Philly. They have the Lions and the 49ers. I really want to take the Lions. I get the feeling that they are going to be extremely motivated to take on the team that knocked them out last season. A team that, if you're a Lions fan, you probably feel like you had the Niners where you wanted them and you let them slip away. Plus, I get the feeling that the Niners could very well be the victims of a poorly timed injury for it feels like the first time in a few years. Niners, of course, will still be very talented. They'll still have Christian McCaffrey. They'll still have Deebo Samuel. They'll still have George Kittle. And they'll still have one of the league's better defenses. I'll take the 49ers to win and move on to the NFC Championship. Now look at the championship games. Bengals, Chiefs. I expect the Bengals to throw quite a bit at Kansas City in this one. I mean, these are kind of the two big rivals in the AFC right now, I would say. Bengals, Chiefs. Third AFC championship between these two. It is the rubber match from that perspective. And there has been quite a few bit of trash talk, especially from the Cincinnati side. That being said, I do think that the Bengals' offensive line will come back to bite them at the worst possible time. Give me Kansas City. And it's the Eagles and the 49ers. And I looked at this matchup, and I do think the 49ers probably have the better defense. But will they have the better offense when this matchup happens? I'm not so sure. It almost kind of depends on if they still have Brandon Ayuk. Because if the 49ers have Brandon Ayuk, I think they're clearly the better team over the Eagles. And we would get a rematch of Niners and Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Third time we would have seen that matchup since Mahomes became the starter in Kansas City. That being said, I'm not that confident that Brandon Ayuk will be on the team at this point. I'm not sure if he'll be there. I'm not sure if he'll be in Pittsburgh. But if he's not there, I think I've got to lean towards the Eagles. The one team that might challenge the 49ers when it comes to talent. So yeah, there you go. We get another Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl. This time it won't be a Kelsey Bowl since Jason retired in the offseason. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of mixed feelings in the Kelsey household for Travis Kelsey versus his brother's former team. Of course, this will be the second time in 3 years that we get this matchup. And it could very well be a challenge for Kansas City. Seeing as you wonder if the Eagles receivers will have an even better game now that the Chiefs don't have L'Jarius Sneed anymore. However, I get the feeling that Super Bowl for Jalen Hurts was an all-time great game that I don't think he can replicate. And if he can't replicate that game, I don't think the Eagles are beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Give me Kansas City for a third Super Bowl in the row. The first three-peat in NFL history. But there you go. There's my picks for the postseason. We'll see how it changes as the season goes on. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And especially if you're, like me, looking forward to the start of the NFL season next week. Next week I'll give you my week 1 predictions, but until then, I will see you all later.